That's it for Game 2, and half our starters sat out, but we all watched it twice. Steve wants to break down the PED report by Al Jazeera. We have some injuries to worry about with Jones and Doxson. We got the Bills coming up in an all-important Game 3 of preseason. I got a tattoo on the inside of my arm, and it says the Hogstye starts right now.
Welcome to the Hogstye with your crew, Alex Zeese, Steve Thomas, and Robbie Duncan.
And welcome to this week's episode. Robbie, how you doing? I see you on there in your tank top like a real lineman is in this time of year.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Yeah?
Ready to talk some Redskins.
Ready to talk some football. Steve, you watched the game at 2:30 in the morning.
No. Actually, I didn't. I did watch it the next morning.
Yeah.
I did not stay up till I did not watch the game that late. I figured it wouldn't be productive. But we got to clarify something for you. Do you actually have a tattoo on the inside of your arm?
No.
And if it does it say the Hogstye starts now, or does it just say the Hogstye?
No, I do not have a tattoo on the inside of my arm. See, if you were into tabloid smut like me, you would know that it's a dig at Robert Griffin's new side piece that he's been sleeping with, where he got a tattoo of a 23-year-old girl's name on the inside of his arm right after he's getting divorced.
You mean that Browns quarterback?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I do love the tabloid nonsense. So.
I don't. I mean, you know what? It's the guy's personal life. Do I agree with his lifestyle choice? I don't know. I mean, who knows what happened? I don't know. I don't care. It's the personal life of a guy who's not a Redskin.
That's true.
Thank goodness
he is not a Redskin right now. Could you imagine the circus we'd be dealing with?
That's what I was just about to say. I'm really glad that I'm glad to say now that he is gone. Mm-hmm. We don't have any more media distractions. And, it was a headache.
Right.
A lot of us were fans of him, and still are for the most part. I'm still pretty much a fan of him, but
I'm a fan of him. The
distraction and constant drama just surrounding him just made it almost too much to bear. I'm glad that this team is finally boring now.
Right.
Well, he did play well in Game 2, of Cleveland's second game, though.
Yeah.
They're running that same 2012 offense.
They're really running more of a Baylor offense than the 2012. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
well.
Yeah, Baylor's offense was big influence on 2012, but but that looks like they've just gone back to dumbing it down for Robert so he can be successful and not running this pro style thing where he's asked to do too much.
Isn't that the smart thing to do, though? I mean, you adapt to what your players can do. It makes a lot of sense. As long as he can stay upright in it. But I just like to give everybody out there a bit of advice. If you're married and you're going to get a divorce, I'm sorry, tragic. But if you then, during your separation, have a new girlfriend, do not get her full first and last name tattooed on you.
Right.
I think that's a good bit of advice, and that's really what Alex was saying.
How about I'll put this out there. If you're happily married, and, I think we can at least say half of us are married. I don't know if we'll always say we're all happily married, because, let's be honest, marriage is tough sometimes. But if you're married to somebody, even for 15 years, just don't get their name tattooed on your arm, because it's like a curse. That is a natural curse to any relationship, is getting that person's name tattooed on you somewhere.
Yeah.
It's the Madden curse.
Yeah, it is. It's like the Madden curse of marriage. Well, let's move on.
As soon as you get a name tattooed, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on from, tabloid nonsense to slightly less tabloid nonsense, Steve. There was a big report by Al Jazeera about PED use, not just in the NFL, but all throughout sports.
There was.
You have some of the details on this. Break it down for us.
Well, really what I wanted to discuss is how the NFL is treating this Al Jazeera report, because I think that's what's interesting. The basic background is that Al Jazeera America did a report in which it cited a source who claimed that a bunch of NFL players, Peyton Manning, James Harrison, Julius Peppers, Mike Neal, and a bunch of Major League Baseball players all received PEDs from a source, and this guy was one of the sources that shipped allegedly these PEDs to people. The guy has recanted his story completely. He said,
Right.
He completely recanted his story. What's interesting to me is, number one, the NFL in about 30 seconds absolved Peyton Manning of all responsibility whatsoever.
Right, and this
they didn't just let him.
months, right? I mean,
that does. They didn't just let him retire, not say anything. They absolved him of responsibility.
Right.
MLB quickly punted on it, because the guy recanted his story. But here's what's interesting: the NFL is now requiring Harrison, Peppers, Matthews, and Neal to come interview with the NFL about it. Mm-hmm. But what is interesting is this relates back to the Tom Brady thing a little bit, because the NFL punished Tom Brady under Article 46 of the CBA for conduct detrimental to the NFL because he didn't cooperate with the inflated ball, with the inflated
scandal.
Ball investigation. Yeah, scandal. And that went to a court of appeals, if everybody recalls, and the NFL won and Tom Brady lost. And so what that meant is that the NFL has a broader scope of enforcement when it comes to the conduct detrimental to the NFL clause. So this fast forward to the James Harrison thing. This is really a performance enhancing drug issue, first and foremost, and there's a separate policy. It's very, very detailed. It goes very specifically about what to do about PEDs, how it's discovered, what the NFL can do, what the players can do, and what the NFL has done. And it doesn't give the NFL broad power. So what Roger Goodell has done is dumped it over into the CBA and said, well, if you don't cooperate with our investigation, now you're not in violation of the PED policy, which is really what it should be. You're in violation of the collective bargaining agreement. And it's just, now mind you, there's no credible evidence. What they have is a recanted report, not only a recanted report, but one from Al Jazeera, and they're forcing Harrison, Peppers, Matthews, and Neal to come in to the NFL offices. And apparently Harrison may be doing it at the Steelers facility, but they're forcing him to testify and saying, if you don't, you are going to be subject to the Roger Goodell Article 46 player discipline. And so this case is really, the NFL is trying to dramatically expand the scope of its powers by dumping basically everything into the conduct detrimental clause. And so the NFLPA really needs to stand up, say, no, we're not doing this, period, and fight it. Unfortunately, though, and it's particularly since Harrison and Peppers and Matthews, at least, are big-time players. These are star players.
Seems like Goodell's just increasing his power more, just like
that's exactly right.
It's so. I mean, like you said, the story's been recanted, so it's not like it's really has any credibility now,
and
right?
This all happened like back during the Super Bowl time of year. It wasn't.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
it was before that. Really,
that we're refocusing on it randomly now.
And again, the real point here is that to the extent there is a legitimate report, which there isn't, but if it was, it would be subject to the PED policy, the performance enhancing drug policy, not under Article 46. This is an example of Roger Goodell running roughshod over the player discipline issue, because like I've always told you guys, the NFL is the 800-pound gorilla, in all things legal. And this is another example of how they
not
are.
Harambe, though.
Pardon me?
Not Harambe, though.
Yeah. Harambe the gorilla?
Yes.
Yeah. Because didn't he die?
Yes, Harambe's dead.
Yeah. No, this is like King Kong climbing the Empire State Building here. So it's really something that I will end it here, but because we need to move on. But it's really something the NFLPA needs to stand up for, say no. And when the negotiations for the next collective bargaining agreement comes on, they really need to stick to their guns, because Roger Goodell, in my opinion, here is just dramatically overreached with the scope of his powers here.
When that time comes, I think it's pretty safe to say that there's going to be a long holdout. Maybe not going to be football for a while, I don't think, because this CBA is flawed big time.
Yeah, and it's flawed in ways that both help hurt the players and ways that hurt the teams in general. We've talked repeatedly about the lack of contact in practice being an issue, and a lot of the rules by what you can and cannot do in practice hurting player development now. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
This is what happens when you let, too many lawyers get in the way of what is an entertainment venue. essentially.
Well, it's not really the lawyers in this case.
I always blame the lawyers.
Yeah, but that's not really what it is in this case. It's that the NFL owners, the NFLPA is a weak union, and the reason everybody says that is they've continually rolled over on issues. They rolled over on a salary cap back in the late 80s, early 90s rather. It was about 93, 94 time frame. The other leagues have not rolled over on other league unions have not rolled on that.
Right.
The MLB has a very soft cap. The only thing that happens is the teams pay a small fine. If they go over the NBA has a fairly hard cap, but they've got bird rights, which allows teams to pay dramatically more for their own players, so they can just roll right over the cap.
That too in the NBA.
Yeah, but there is, but the NBA teams have much greater flexibility to retain their own players, and in the NBA contracts are about 95% of them are fully guaranteed. MLB contracts are 100% guaranteed.
Right.
And NFL isn't. And so anyway, we can talk more about that when it comes on. I just want
Well, no, keep going. You're fine. Keep going.
Oh, okay. I also just want to real quick hit Joey Bosa because it's interesting that Joey Bosa is he's been the longest holdout of any player rookie since the CBA it was instituted with the rookie slotted salaries. Okay. And what's going on, in case anybody's wondering, first of all, Joey Bosa is the son of a former player, so he has money. And he's not in a position where he needs to, feed himself. He doesn't need to buy his mom a house, anything like that. So he's financially secure already. But what's happening here is that there's two things. It's one, there's something called offset. It's not the salary he's arguing about.
Right, because that's set.
It's the structure of the signing bonus and its offset language. The Chargers have a history of prorating their signing bonuses, or structuring rather their signing bonuses so the players don't get it all up front. They get it year by year. Not every team does that. Some teams just hand over with a $15 million check right up front. That's not how the Chargers operate. And so there's something called offset language in the standard player most of the standard player contracts, which says that if a player gets cut in the middle of his rookie year, the salary, the guaranteed signing bonus part can be offset by the amount of money he gets paid by his second team that signs him. Because everybody, most of these guys are going to get a second chance. And what that does is that's going to limit the amount of total dollars the player gets. And so that's what Bosa's arguing about. Bosa does not want offset language. He wants to collect his entire signing bonus and the amount of his second contract. And the Chargers just refuse to do it. And Bosa's set in stone because he doesn't need the money. Andrew Luck argued about this in his rookie contract and eventually rolled on it because
he did.
He did.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. His father was the athletic director at University of West Virginia. He's a big hotshot lawyer. Andrew Luck did not need the money either.
Well, but his father being an athletic director is probably not the same money as a former NFL player.
Andrew Luck's father is loaded.
Okay. He's doing okay.
I know Andrew Luck's father. He's not Donald Trump, but I mean, he's got a lot of money. He didn't need the money, and that's the same as Joey Bosa.
Well, and we just revealed Steve knows Andrew Luck's father somehow.
I do know Andrew Luck's father a little bit. He's not like on my Christmas card list or anything,
but Steve's Christmas card list could be very interesting if he really wanted it to be, though. We know that.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Yeah. Well. That does it for some of that outside the Redskins locker room stuff. But you know what? Let's focus on the game. We all watched it now. I watched it twice. Steve watched it twice. I think Robbie probably watched it frame by frame when he watched it. Yeah,
I had tons of chatter on Twitter on what was it? Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with Robbie then? Let's start offense. Robbie, what do you think? What are your overall kind of big picture thoughts?
The running game looked better with Matt Jones for the time until he got hurt. I was encouraged by that. Our running game did seem better. People have been talking about it. Well, yeah, but running game did seem better, and people kind of mentioned this also on Twitter the other day, but it seemed better when they had Laval at left guard and Spencer Long at center.
Right.
The running game definitely seemed to pick up a little bit with that I guess lineup, but Yeah, I was pretty pleased overall. I mean, I was surprised when I saw the healthy scratches, but I like it. I think it was very smart of Jay Gruden to do that. You got all these backup guys that you need to see more of and get them more experience, and it kind of paid off. I mean, we still won the game, which doesn't really matter, but you won with your backups, and your starters didn't really do much.
I hated it, by the way. I hated the fact that Jay Gruden did this. I definitely think the first team should have at least taken, a series or two and then get them out there. There's a group of these players that are, to date haven't played at all, other than 3 or 4 plays. I do think they need to get some time. I get what he was doing. Let's preserve, let's not get everybody injured, and we still had Matt Jones injured anyway, and we can talk about that. But yeah. I think that the first team should have at least played a series or two, in my opinion.
I mean, they're going to get tons of prep and experience for the season next week in the third game. That they're probably going to play the first half. If
so
anything.
They'll get 5 or 6 series.
Yeah,
and that's going to be their entire preseason.
Well, if it's the first half, it's the first half, or
if they come out stale in the first week and we end up losing, then yes, you can blame Jay Gruden for how he handled the preseason. But I personally think it's a smart move because you don't want to take a chance on getting these guys hurt in a meaningless game where they get their experience during training camp and in the practices. The preseason really is just I don't know, it's you don't really get anything out of it with your starters because they're not going hard for one thing. Because they don't want to get hurt. It just doesn't – it's not necessary.
And I think Steinberg had a great article about this whole topic.
Washington Post,
in the Washington
Sports
Post.
Blog.
And he really breaks down a lot of interesting perspectives on is this where the NFL is going to go because they want to get rid of 2 preseason games anyway.
Let's be clear about something.
Yeah,
the NFL doesn't want to
them with either 2 regular season or a playoff games.
The NFL does not want to get the Players Association wants to get rid of 2 preseason games.
Okay, it would be a
the
trade-off.
NFL wants
That's right.
games. Yeah.
Right. But here's what I think. I like this approach. I think you need to augment it by having your first stringers play more in game 1. So give them a full quarter in game 1, rest them game 2, give them a half in game 3, and give them 1 drive in game 4, or even rest them game 4, depending on what you think you need to do. Yeah. I think that will be the approach going forward. Gives them roughly the same amount of playing time that way in the end, but it lets them rest up between each week's preseason game. And I think, rest early on is so important for these players who are just going to get ground down in the regular season. So I like it in that regard. I also like it for one other reason. What did we need to work on this game? It wasn't Kirk in the passing game. It was running the ball.
How do we know that? Blocking. We didn't see the first string passing offense more than about 4 plays last week.
Well, we saw more than 4 plays because Kirk went 5 for 5. I think.
He went, okay. I mean, he went 1 series.
Yeah.
But point is, I think you have to have a little bit of time. In 1 series doesn't cut it. I don't think. I mean, Robbie's the guy who's played at a high level. I'll take Robbie's word for it. But
here's the thing. You can practice so much more in the passing game in training camp with the way the rules are now. Like, it doesn't make it almost doesn't make sense to practice running the ball with how little hitting they do. Like, it would make more sense to just run the ball every play in preseason just to get that warmed up.
Yeah. Yeah, it would.
So, I like it. I like the approach we took by running a lot with Matt Jones, and we can talk about some of the other issues because I feel like with Jones hurt right now, we have nobody behind him.
Well, yeah. First of all, Jones went 7 carries, 31 yards, along of 9. That's an average of 4.4 yards per carry. Keith Marshall, 10 carries, 26 yards, which is obviously 2.6 yards per carry. Right. Chris Thompson, 4 for 18 yards. Robert Kelly, 3 carries, 8 yards. Mac Brown, 2 carries, 7 yards. Colt McCoy had a few scrambles in there that counted as runs.
That one sweet scramble where he did the spin move and then the juke move like he's playing
That's
Madden.
pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It looked to me on that play that Ty Nsekhe tripped on himself, which is why he had to.
Yeah. It was a busted play, but he got out of it. The thing I worry about is Thompson. Like, you said he had 18 yards on 4 carries?
carries, 18 yards.
Yeah, 3 of those carries he got either -1 or no yards. He didn't do anything.
The
Well, that's
blocking wasn't great either. The
That's what
blocking
Jones
wasn't
did,
great on
too.
either on those plays.
And that was Jones also, by the way. I mean, Jones had 2 or 3 carries that didn't go anywhere. We had the 9-yard one. He had
Yeah, but
one carry in the A gap for about 4 yards.
Well, he had one that was a fumbled handoff by Colt.
Theismann blamed Colt. I couldn't tell honestly who was at fault, but Theismann blamed Colt, so I guess we'd go with that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going with too, because based off of what Theismann said, which is, it's on the quarterback if the
Nate Sudfeld one in the second half was definitely on Sudfeld.
Yeah.
The standoff.
Yeah.
But okay, but in terms of Jones, I'm glad he did better. It's only 7 carries.
Right.
He's had 10 carries or something all off season or preseason. I think he validated. Forget his health. We'll talk about his health. I think he validated the idea that he's our best running back, for better or for worse. He is our best running back. I don't think he still hasn't really showed me anything to say that he's an above average running back. I think if the hole is there, he can hit it. I think he should be better than he is based on his physical characteristics. Like the one, like I think it was the second carry that was the one up the A gap. He just, got crushed by the linebacker, for the stop.
Yeah.
A big running back like that, him should at least be able to fall forward, bowl over the linebacker to a certain extent, gain another couple of yards when you hit dead on like that. Robbie's raising his hand up.
Yeah, I think Matt Jones, I think he thinks himself too much of a, shifty, elusive back. He doesn't play to his size like he should. Like there was that play. He tried to run around. I think it was a linebacker it was Darrelle Revis who tackled him.
That was a sweep on the right side.
Yeah, and Darrelle Revis, scooped his legs out from underneath him for the tackle. He should have just, bowled him over. I mean, if you got Darrelle Revis coming at you and you're big Matt Jones, you should just destroy him and go right through him. But
instead what he did is try to run around him. He didn't really have this.
He tried to do a stiff arm and go around, and it didn't work out. Go right through Darrelle Revis.
It's funny. He does that with corners. He tries to evade a cornerback. But then when he's trying to go against linebackers or defensive ends or something, that's the guy he wants to try and bowl over, and he can't.
But you know what, though?
They're
he's
bigger
the size of a linebacker. Well, I don't know. I mean, he's what, 6? Is he 6'2" or 6'3"?
6'2".
And he's about 230 almost, isn't he? I mean, he's a big boy. He's not small. He ought to be able to take on.
And defensive ends are still going to be bigger than that these days, it seems like, aren't they?
Some of them.
Most defensive ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but point is, if there's a running back who can take on a linebacker, it's him.
Sure. But against a linebacker, I'm okay with you trying to get around him against not against a corner. A corner just running over, like you said.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, now he's got his injury, AC joint sprain. Robbie, have you ever sprained a shoulder?
No, I've sprained my knee before, but that's about it.
Okay, so we don't know. We're recording this on Sunday morning, and as of Sunday morning, we do not have any additional information really as to the scope of his injury. I guess, was it Mike Jones?
Yeah, he said
about it.
He said it's not that serious. It looks like they're not sure if he'll miss. If he's probably not going to miss significant time, but they don't really have a firm update yet.
Well, when it happened and they released what it was, I did tweet right at Rick Snyder. Because, one of the nice things about us having friends in the news is we can ask them things.
Right.
And Snyder said that 2 to 3 weeks is pretty normal to be out. So that would be preseason. But the real issue is that once you're back and healthy, it still hurts for months. Like, you'll be healed physically, but you'll feel it for a while.
So the best case scenario then is that he's going to be back for the Pittsburgh game. I think it sounds based on that it's almost impossible to say that he's going to be up next week against the Bills, and certainly not in the fourth preseason game. Yeah,
that's what Rick was saying.
Which is fine by me, really, because I want to see these other guys, get some experience and kind of prove themselves that we have at least a little bit of depth at the running back position.
Yeah, because
Robbie, we had a little bit of conversation before we went on the air here about this, and I mentioned that I thought Keith Marshall was kind of playing himself maybe off the roster. I mean, what'd you see in Rob Kelly and Keith Marshall?
I mean, I haven't seen enough, really. Kelly, I think, is better than Marshall, at least vision-wise.
game 1, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Marshall obviously has that speed that you want in a running back, but I don't know. Both of them, to me, just haven't shown enough to really be confident in them.
Right.
I want to have Chris Thompson do more and take on a bigger role, but he's just not big enough. He can't handle, running in between the tackles a lot. So you have to be selective in the carries that he gets, unfortunately. Which I think he's a good back.
People forget that Chris Thompson had an injury history,
Yeah.
in his first 2 years also.
Well, and I wonder with Chris Thompson, if we know Jones is done for the preseason and, who knows how much more, do you almost want to hold out somebody like Chris Thompson from getting too many plays in preseason now, just so you have your second? He's probably your second best guy right now that we know.
Oh, he definitely is. I think he definitely is.
So do you almost want to limit him so that you don't risk him getting injured?
That'd be smart. I mean, let Kelly, Marshall, and Mac Brown handle the rotation, just like in and out, the three of them all game.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's we'll also have Kelsey Young out there too, and Joe Carriage Joe Carriage is
he's a fullback.
But let's give him a couple carries as long as we're doing it. Let him play. But on Marshall, I think Marshall is the guy that the fans are most excited about just because of his physical characteristics. And we on this show and others have thrown around that he was starting over Todd Gurley for a year in high school or college rather.
Right.
But he's disappointed in that we haven't seen really that potential. I think you're right, Robbie, in saying he doesn't seem to really have the vision right now. He's kind of got the same problem as Jones does. If there's a hole that's there, he can hit it.
But they're not creators.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah, right. And Marshall's another guy who's got the size, and he ought to be able to create, and he doesn't really do that. Rob Kelly, I think, is better at getting the yardage that's there.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a crease, he's going to hit it and he's going to gain a few yards, and that same can't be said for Keith Marshall right now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's go into other players that kind of stood out too. Jameson Crowder finally came back and had a really good game. He looked like the Crowder that we were used to all season. Just getting open, making good plays. His touchdown was called back, unfortunately, but Crowder's the real deal. I'm still very exciite about what he can do as a slot guy.
He got downfield on one play too, which I mean, for as much as we loved what he did last year, it was all short yardage, dink and dunk type stuff. It's nice to see him get 15 yards downfield or something like that and get the ball.
Yep.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I think he's a legit starting wide receiver.
Yeah.
The NFL is what we have in him. I think Ryan Grant got a lot of playing time. He had some good plays. He had the one play where he was
heads up play.
Where he used his body to stay off the ground. He rolled over the defender and was able to, that was a great play, and was able to stand back up. That's a great play.
That was a little highlight kind of reel.
Yeah.
Rashad
Ross.
Yeah. Although one thing someone's got to sit Rashad Ross down and say, listen, I know you're the D Jackson clone thing. Stop running backwards. He did that on the punt return, and he did that when he caught the ball around the goal line at one point, and he starts running like 3 yards back to get around somebody. It's the NFL. You're not going to get around a guy doing that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a situation where he should have taken the yardage that's there, fallen forward for 2 yards.
Exactly.
Real fast. Ross had 4 receptions, 58 yards. Grant had 4 receptions, 43 yards.
2 touchdowns, too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, big deal. Jameson Crowder, 3 receptions, 38 yards. And it goes down from there. I'll just point out that Kendall Thompson had the big touchdown at the end, the one-handed grab.
Maurice Harris he's shining, too. I mean, he didn't get 13, any, he's looking really good to me, too. We got some serious depth at this receiving position.
Yeah.
Maurice Harris had 21 snaps. He may have only had 1 reception, but he was on the field for 21 offensive snaps.
Now, he's the one who got the penalty thrown on him when Crowder caught that touchdown in the first drive. But other than that, he did play well.
He played well last week, too.
Yeah. I mean...
it's a situation where, like we said, I mean, we've got... 4 receivers locked in for sure.
Probably.
Garcon, Jackson, Crowder, and like it or not, Grant made the team. And so we've got, Rashad Ross, Valdez Showers, Maurice Harris, Kendall Thompson, T.J. Thorpe, Des Stewart, all fighting for at most 2 slots, at most.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
And
probably
I think
more likely 1. I don't think we'll carry more than 6.
We're not going to carry more than 6, but I mean, if we have 4 locks, there's one, maybe
we
2
have 5
slots.
locks.
I think
What's
Ross.
the 5th?
I don't think Ross isn't going to be off this roster either.
Well, and
okay,
you've
if that's
got
a
Doxson. We're not.
I did forget Doxson. So we really have 5 definite locks unless Doxson goes on IR. Doxson goes on IR.
Yeah.
Which he could.
Yeah.
Maybe now's a good time to talk about Doxson.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to talk about anything else we saw?
No, let's finish.
You know what?
Let's finish that. Yeah. Well, let's talk about
defense.
Quarterbacks.
Okay.
Let's talk quarterbacks first.
Oh, quarterbacks. Okay.
You want to talk quarterback?
Yeah. I mean, Colt McCoy looked pretty good. I think Colt McCoy looked
interception. Like
his knee buckled though. Did you see that?
I did not see that on that interception. It did.
Yeah, his knee buckled as he tried to throw it away. I don't think
implying that he was trying to throw it out of the end zone and he didn't because his knee buckled.
He put a quote out there that his knee buckled, and I watched it again, and you could definitely see, like, I guess as he tried to plant to throw it away, his knee buckled and it affected his throw. So I mean,
maybe he was trying to throw it out of the side of the end zone, and
I think that's what he was trying to do, but it didn't work out that way.
It looked like a terrible decision if you ignore that. I hadn't heard that. That's a good input.
Yeah.
But I thought basically
I'll say about Colt, he had that one deep ball where he was trying to heave it to Ross, and it just died in midair. And you realize, okay, Colt cannot throw it more than 35 yards.
If he threw it better, like he had the safety and the corner beat. If he threw a better ball there, it would have been a touchdown.
But it looked more like an arm strength thing. Like he just can't throw it past 35. That's why he's back up.
Kirk Cousins definitely has a stronger. Cousins doesn't have the strongest arm in the NFL. He's probably average, but I mean he's definitely has a stronger arm than Colt, who has a below average arm for sure.
Yeah.
I'll say this about Colt though. I think we have a really good backup in him. I don't think anyone should be too worried if Kirk goes down. I mean, yes, things will change with the offense, but we got a very reliable backup who can come in and make some plays for us. Like we've seen him against Dallas last year. Almost every backup, but not all of them.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with you, Robbie. I think he's a great backup, and he runs Jay Gruden's system very well. He fits Jay Gruden's system well. You know, the strengths of Colt McCoy are he can run the short passing game. He can release the ball quickly. He knows how to scan the field well. So Colt fits. I just we've seen a lot of chatter with the fans this week about Cousins and the deep ball, and oh my God, he can't throw it. Let's just clarify right now. The deep ball is not Kirk Cousins' strength.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can all agree on that. But he's not below average at that. He's not terrible at it.
No.
It's just not his strength. That's all we're saying. The reasonable people out there will say it's just not his strength, and that's it. He can do it, people. It's not that he's terrible at it. And if you're saying that, you're wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just not the strength of his game, and that's it. He's he's average at that. It's not Robert Griffin who had a cannon. He's not that. That's all about.
So let's talk about Sudfeld real quick.
Yeah.
He was terrible, I think it's safe to say, for everything except that final drive.
It wasn't pretty, but he got the job done.
Yeah. He was 3 for 9 for 8 yards at one point before that drive. Because I was just starting to count.
You want to know?
Yeah.
It's he was 10 for 20, 77 yards with the one touchdown. Quarterback rating of 76.5. He's a rookie. He's inconsistent.
Right.
He's got the physical tools to be good. Someday
I'm just saying, let's hold off on
work.
It's Nate Sudfeld in the future talk right now.
Nate Studfeld, as they're saying now. Studfeld.
Is that what it is?
That's the nickname now.
Okay.
And it wasn't, the last drive wasn't like a flawless 2-minute execution. The game calling crew in Theismann and Larry Michael, not Larry Michael, who's in the booth now?
Chick Hernandez.
Chick
Hernandez, pointed out that there were too much time between the plays.
Chicken thighs, as they're now going to be called.
Yeah,
but you tweeted at them.
You got to give Sudfeld credit on that touchdown pass. That was a great pass.
That was a great pass. Yeah, but he really did struggle for the first quarter and a half of his playing time. All right, let's move on to defense.
Defense.
Martrell Spate.
Martrell Spate. Yeah, he had a good game.
I think we're really deep at this inside linebacker position. I think someone on the top end is going to be on his way out. More specifically,
Perry Riley.
Perry Riley.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
His Perry Riley's salary cap is too big to
To-
justify him not starting.
Right.
That's the thing. Perry Riley's got a $5 million salary, over $5 million salary cap hit for 2016, and they're just not going to keep that
right.
if he's not a starter.
I mean, you got Perry Riley in the mix with Will Compton, Mason Foster, Martrell Spate, who's playing really well.
Compton, by the way, I believe sat out the whole game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
He did.
so that
that's
means
why
he's locked.
that's why Spate played. He was
Right.
with the starters that game.
If you look at the 9 guys who sat out, there are stars.
Yeah.
You know.
So you have Will Compton, Mason Foster, Martrell Spate, Sua Cravens basically is an inside linebacker right now.
Right.
Terrence Garvin, who's a special teams ace. He's kind of the odd man out here. And I would like to see us try to work a trade in with some team that needs a linebacker somewhere. If
We're not going to
just-
get much for him.
Well,
no.
no.
That
But
kind of salary
anything,
cap.
Can we get a
anything
third string running back? We need that right now.
yeah, package deal type thing.
Yeah.
But anything you can get for him before cutting him would be nice.
Because
but-
I don't think he's a better. If you look at value added of player over salary cap, his number. If you assign a value, which a notional value, which we won't do because we're not PFF, we don't invent
Right.
stats. But if you assign the notional value of Mason Foster over his salary cap is much higher than Perry Riley's.
It's in the black is basically what you can say, right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure Perry Riley is.
No.
Is he is he an average starting linebacker?
Probably.
Okay, maybe. Probably.
Yeah.
But at the salary cap hit versus Mason Foster's $1.1 million hit,
Right.
there's just it's not even really a question to me.
Yeah. If you were to say they're all average to above average or top 4 guys, he's the one that stands out then because of that salary
Yeah,
cap.
definitely. I'd like to ask Robbie more about Spate though, because it seemed to my unexpert that Spate was kind of all over the place. He wasn't a Patrick Willis star out there, but he was kind of in the middle of everything, a legit middle linebacker. What'd you think?
He looks legit to me. He's pretty explosive. He flies to the football. He delivers a hit almost every time he gets to touch the running back or whoever has the ball. I'm a big fan of his. I really like what he brings. He's a very emotional, raw player. He brings that raw emotion to the game. And obviously, you've seen the clip of him last week leading the linebackers in the pregame chant type thing.
Right.
He's got that leadership quality to him. He could be our future.
I mean, I look at what he was doing very similar to how Will Compton was his rookie, and I guess his first 2 seasons where he was just playing preseason and on the practice squad. Like you said, he flies around, he gets the ball, physical. But, there are little technique things that he clearly is going to have to work on to become an impact player, I think, long term.
Yeah, I think he's a little different than Will Compton because Martrell Spate is a draft pick. And so I think the team Will Compton was undrafted free agent. So the team probably expects a little bit more out of Martrell Spate than they did of Will Compton in the beginning. But I'd like to point out real quick that Terrence Garvin made the most of his opportunity. In the second half, he was flying around. Granted it was in the third and fourth quarter, but he certainly was doing a lot to show that he deserves to be on the roster. Yeah,
absolutely. And our secondary had a better game than last week too, for the most part. Kendall Fuller got burned a little bit on that one play, but I mean there were other things that he showed last night that made me very excited about what we have in him. He had that one play where he, shed the block and disrupted that quick screen pass to the receiver. Yeah. He's got a good nose for the football, good high IQ type. He's a high IQ type player, so I like what we have in him too.
Right.
Well, and let's just talk numbers real fast. I mean, the locks we have on the roster for inside linebacker: Compton, Cravens, Foster, Spate, I think are locks, right? Mm-hmm. And so the question is, do we carry a 5th inside linebacker?
Not unless they're special team stud.
Yeah.
It's
possible. Yeah.
And, because that your special teams is made up of good tight ends, good linebackers, and then corners on the edge to be gunners. That's,
Yeah. Let's talk defensive backfield real fast.
Mm-hmm.
Dunbar
had a good game. He redeemed himself, I feel like.
Yeah. Will Blackman had the nice interception.
Yeah.
Dunbar had a good pass. Dunbar had a great pass breakup.
He did. where he
Blackman
just got,
was the one that had the interception.
Yeah. D Hall had that nice little fumble
recovery.
Yeah.
Which was caused by Martrell Spate.
Yeah.
That's kind of classic D Hall, though. He's kind of always right there in the middle of things. He's a playmaker. I think it's kind of amazing how well that D'Angelo Hall has stepped into and embraced his safety role.
Right.
Yep.
And not only embraced it, but he's become a quality safety overnight.
But if he can kind of just do what he does well, which is be around the ball, kind of sit behind it a little bit, he's going to get those chances for fumbles and interceptions like we saw. So, I'm not saying he'll be a Pro Bowler, but, if he can get 3-4 turnovers for us this season, that's a good thing.
We got an interesting battle here at corner, though. Deshaun Phillips has kind of gone under the radar, but he's our starting nickel corner right now.
Yeah.
And so you have Breland, Phillips, and Norman, and then you have Greg Toller,
Dunbar,
Kendall Fuller, and Dunbar.
Yeah.
How many cornerbacks are you going to keep?
Well, you got to keep at least 6, I think.
Yeah.
It seems to me. I mean, so you've got obviously the locks, Breland, Norman, Fuller's a lock. So that's 3.
I think Toller's a lock.
Toller's probably a lock.
Yeah, Toller.
And so really the battle may be for 2 spots. The battle may be Phillips, Jeremy Harris, Quentin Dunbar, Lloyd Carrington.
Right.
There's your battle. And I think certainly Carrington and Harris are behind in the battle. And so what you're talking about is
practice squad material.
Yeah. So what we're talking about is Deshaun Phillips, Quentin Dunbar. Do they keep both?
Yeah.
I think they would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to ask, where does Toller fit in? I mean, Toller's played his way on the roster. If Phillips is lining up at the nickel cornerback,
I think basically Toller would be our next man up for the outside corner spot. If Breland or Norman needs a break, I think he would be the next guy in. He's proved to be a really good man guy. He locks down guys pretty much every time, it seems like.
The nice thing is all these guys are pretty good quality, and you can kind of move them in and out based on the situation. Dunbar's got his size, so maybe you say, well, this week we're going against a bigger wide receiver. Let's put Dunbar on him because he'll match up better. You can do a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I think it's time to mention Kendall Fuller a little bit. He's been inconsistent. He hasn't been great. He was the one draft. Yeah, he was kind of the one draft pick I questioned, if I recall, back in the draft, is why do we really need this guy? I think he's proven that he's kind of a rookie and he's got potential. He's made some good plays, but he's not really ready yet, I don't think, to be a contributor.
Quite.
No.
Yeah. Which is fine because we got guys on the roster that you can plug and play while he's, figuring it out and getting used to the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really need him to be ready right now.
Let's be honest. It's kind of the same with our receiving core, and it's an embarrassment where it's like, well, we drafted this guy really high, but we don't really need him this year. He's in the same position as Doxson, basically.
He may be in a better position than Doxson in that regard, because if Doxson was healthy, we could use Doxson. Fuller, we truly don't need him right this year. Doxson could play a role if Doxson could ever get out there.
Yeah.
Because we do need maybe
it's jump threat.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Let's hit before we move on to Doxson. Let's hit special teams real fast. Tressway is like the preseason MVP of the team. That guy is just booming punts. He had the one punt, the 74-yard punt. That's crazy.
I don't think we really saw much of Hunter, or not Hunter, Hop. Sorry.
Yeah, Hopkins.
I was going way back there with Hunter. Duster. But we really do have probably the best kicker-punter combo that we've had in a decade at this point.
It may be one of the better kicker-punter combos in the NFL.
It might be.
At this point.
Yep.
I think Jameson Crowder continues to not impress as a punt returner.
I don't know who is going to return punts for us right now. No one looks like they want to.
People need a block on that, too. I mean, I understand he's not doing well returning either, but the blocking's not been very good either. Like, as soon as he caught that one ball that he muffed, that guy was right in his face.
By Crowder, though. That should have been a fair catch.
It should have been, yes. But still, and the other plays, when Ross tried to return a punt, there was nowhere to go. People aren't blocking very well.
Well, see, Ross, I think, did a better job on that play of trying to get a few yards. Crowder is more sort of an east to west runner, not a north south.
Antoine Randall L style.
Yeah, that's my big issue with Crowder. I don't mean to be overly negative about him, but he just really isn't good at it. And
he's a
the
very
blocking
good wide receiver. We'll take that, but he's not a punt returner.
I think they need to let TJ Thorpe have some more opportunities at punt returner.
Yeah,
he got some good yards when he got his chances.
We need and this is just me being weird. I want to see a running back there doing punt returns. I feel like running backs go north south and hit people.
We had that guy, some guy named Brian Mitchell did okay at punting.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a homer for that. Rock Cartwright, remember when he was doing it for us forever? Yeah,
Rock was good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on since we're running out of time here. Real quick, Jock Doxson still hurt. Steve, you seem to be really getting worried about it. I'm still.
Well, I am.
I'm less panicked about it. I'll tell you.
Well, the truth. I emailed or tweeted at our friend of the show, Rich Tandler, and friend of the show, Rick Snyder, 2 weeks ago about Doxson, and said, "Is it time to start thinking about pup list IR? What do the Redskins think about Doxson?" At the time, this was right before the first preseason game. They said, "No, it's way too early. Don't worry about it." Well, now the chatter has started about Doxson going to the pup list. I think the team has not been completely forthcoming about his injury. Because they have not told the public the full truth. He was day listed as day to day in OTAs, if we recall.
Right.
And here it is, 2 months later. I fear that because he's a wide receiver, if you were a running back or maybe an offensive lineman, you could, sort of those positions seem to have on the offense be able to just sort of step in and go as rookies. Wide receivers, they don't. Right. Wide receivers have traditionally struggled as rookies, and the more it goes with him not practicing, the more it becomes possible that it's kind of a lost season for Josh Doxson. So my fear is that if he continues to be out, he's just not going to be productive this year.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah, and I understand why you're worried. I mean, luckily, as we've said, we have so much depth at wide receiver this year. If the worst case happens and he's on IR, we're not going to be hurting for wide receivers.
No, but he does fill a role that we don't have. I mean, if anybody's ever seen him in person, did you guys see him in person in training camp?
No,
either one
he was
of you?
on the pup list. He wasn't hanging out on the sidelines that much.
Well, Robbie, you saw him working on the side field, right?
He was on the side field, but it's really far away. Couldn't get real.
Okay.
They look like ants when they're on that field.
This guy is big, people.
Yeah, he is big.
If you saw the photos from the draft day when it was Doxson and Kendall Fuller and Sua Craven standing next to each other in the photos, Doxson was the biggest of the three.
Yep.
By far. He looked bulkier, he looked taller, he looked bigger. His combination of size and speed is something we don't have. He could play a role.
And, it's not like I'm happy that he's hurt. I don't want to come across that way. But, he's a rookie wide receiver, like you said. It was going to take him time anyway.
We had a poll on him too, didn't we, Steve?
That's true.
Yeah. You want to do the poll right now, real fast?
Give us those poll numbers.
Okay. Poll question this week had to do with Josh Doxson. The question was, because I was just thinking about this, the question was, how productive will Josh Doxson be this year given his injury? The question, the categories were, he will become our number one wide receiver. The second one was, he will play at some point, but he won't be a factor. Third choice was he'll become a solid backup over the course of the year. And then the fourth choice is he's going to short-term IR. And I included, I was thinking pup list IR. I just couldn't fit it in the Twitter block. But short-term IR, an unproductive year. So what do you guys think is the future for Josh Doxson this year? If you had to vote in the poll, what would you vote for?
Solid backup, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get pup listed in the end. I think if that were he were going IR or short-term IR or pup list, they would have made that move by now. So I'm going to say he does get some playing time. I think he'll be mostly a situational guy for us. Put him in the red zone. Work on that part of his game this year. And hey, if he gets 4 or 5 touchdowns that way, rookie year, I'll take it.
Okay. Well, the public, by a vote of 39%, thought that he will become a solid backup. 27% thought he's going to short-term IR. He's going to be unproductive. 21% said he's going to play at some point, but he's not going to be much of a factor this year. And the very optimistic 13% of you said he will become our number one wide receiver. I think that implies kind of like Jerry Rice level of talent.
Right.
And I don't know if he has that or not. So that's it. If you ask what I would have voted for, I tend to lean towards pup list. I think he's probably going to get pup listed.
Okay, so you're in that 27%.
Yeah, I think I'm in the 27%, unfortunately.
We'll say it's now 28% because Steve's in there.
I'd like to, by the way, real quick, say on the IR thing,
the
rules have changed on IR. You don't have to pre-designate the returning member
on
IR. No, the rules changed this year. So you can put as many people as you want on IR and designate the short and bring back one player later.
Gotcha.
You don't have to pre-designate them. So that gives the teams a little bit more flexibility.
That's such a good little change. If you're the pre-designation thing never made any sense to me because didn't we pre-designate someone and then they had to go full IR and we couldn't bring anybody back?
Well, we pre-designated Nick Sundberg at one point, didn't we? As the short-term. It was our long snapper.
There was one year where we designated somebody who couldn't come back when we had hoped, and then we couldn't bring anybody back. So that's a good change. Let's move on. Final thing of the day. Let's talk about that Bills game we got coming up next week. Big game, week 3. This is when all the starters will play, so Steve will be happy.
Yes.
And it's at home, which is nice. The fans won't feel as ripped off as probably the fans last Friday felt. So
we got
thoughts.
The Bills. Yeah, I mean, we've got our, the NFL's big mouth coming in is Rex Ryan and his brother, Rob. Rob Ryan is the coach.
Well, defensive coach, yeah.
Yeah, defensive coach. Tyrod Taylor just signed a new contract. And his new contract was a 5-year contract that basically boiled down to a 1-year deal in terms of the salary cap versus dead money. We beat the Bills last year. It's like we have the same. To me, it's the same questions. Is somebody going to be able to establish a running game? I tend to doubt it. The Bills have a good offense or defensive line. And we're down to no Matt Jones very likely next week. So I don't know how much running game we're going to be able to see unless they bring a veteran in this week.
Yeah, bigger thing I want to see other than that is how our defense handles Tyrod Taylor. I mean, obviously he's a playmaker. He makes plays on the run, breaks out of the pocket if things break down. And I want to see how we can contain him, how the DBs handle covering him or their guys to prevent him from making these plays on the run. And he's a big play guy. He doesn't make a lot of dink and dunks. He's a big play guy.
Yeah. And I think you make a great point about trying to contain him. I think the Bills game was probably our worst game run performance-wise last year. I remember looking up numbers at one point, and it stood out that they had like 250 rushing yards on us.
You mean run defense?
Yeah, run defense. Did. It was something like
that.
Now,
remember, the Bills were the number 1 rushing team in the NFL last year.
Because they run the read option with Tyrod Taylor. And we all know how that helps your
Plus, they got LaShawn McCoy.
Right. Yeah, well, but when we had RG3 healthy in 2012, using that same offense, you're going to be the number 1 rushing or in the top, probably.
Well, we had Alfred Morris back then, who was on it at his peak.
So, anyway, but my point is, if we can contain the run game, I'll be very happy with what we see.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, that was, our big defensive point going into the season, into the preseason, is they've got to do better on stopping the run. I'll just say that the Jets are a terrible team. If this game gave us any clue as about the 2016 Jets, they're in trouble.
Their quarterback situation's rough.
It's rough. They're running. They didn't run the ball at all in the second half, basically. But what very little running they did in the first half, it was unproductive, and they didn't have much carry. So we haven't really been tested. Really, the starters have not been tested too much against the run. Because the Falcons didn't really do too much either last week. So this is going to be the big test in terms of how the running defense has really improved. We'll see.
Yeah. I had it written down here that I was really disappointed we didn't get to see one of our favorite punching bags from last year, Christian Hackenberg, in the game last night.
That was Robbie's
apparently
favorite
the Jets'
punching
fourth
bag.
stringer and hasn't gotten a snap.
Well, see, here's the thing I saw. Manny Benton brought it up on Twitter. He thinks that the Jets are kind of keeping him low key and just trying to sneak him onto the practice squad by not putting any film out there on him. I think they're trying to. He thinks they're trying to stash him, and which, I can kind of see that too. I mean, the guy has some potential. He's
got a cannon,
some ability. He's got a cannon. He's got some potential, but his decision making is terrible and his accuracy is terrible. But I think they're maybe just trying to. Just develop him and try to sneak him onto the practice squad and hope that no one,
Is that you talking about Hackenberg, right?
Yeah,
I was looking at something up. How can they possibly? Hackenberg was a second-round draft pick?
Third.
How can any draft pick that high make it through the practice squad though?
Because he's probably a poor man's Rex Grossman at this point. So no one really is going to take him. Anyway.
But the big Ryan. My point was in bringing that up. The big Ryan Fitzpatrick. Oh my God, he hadn't signed. The world is going to end. Mm-hmm. Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't that good.
No.
He's okay.
Colt McCoy outplayed Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely, he did. Absolutely. Now the Jets wide receivers, have hands of bricks or something because they had 4 or 5 drop passes at him right in the hands.
Well, one of them was from Brandon Marshall, who basically just didn't want to catch that.
He was afraid of getting hit.
He didn't want to get hit in a preseason game across the middle. So he was like, screw this. I'm not catching this ball.
Yeah.
It was like Brandon Marshall had the ghost of Sean Taylor lining up on him on that play.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious what happened.
Yeah, but the Jets, I can see why they panicked because as bad as Fitzpatrick looked, everyone else looked worse.
Geno was rough.
Yeah. I don't think Geno Smith will be in the NFL in a year. So, yeah.
But my point in bringing that up was I didn't mean to go backwards to the Jets.
Sorry.
My point was just that we haven't been tested in the running game yet, and the Bills are most certainly going to test us. Third preseason game, LaShawn McCoy, Tyrod Taylor, number 1 rushing team in the NFL. Stephen Pye looked better. Stephen Pye made a couple plays this week. Give him some props. Yeah, he got a sack. So we'll see if the new and improved defensive line can, or can do well, or we're going to take a step back.
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
think if anyone steps up, it'll be Sua Cravens. I think a speedy linebacker like that can, you can put him in there kind of to fight the read option pretty well.
He may be the only player on this draft class that's a contributor this year to any great extent.
Maybe. We'll see. We got a long way to go.
Oh, I know. But Doxson and, Fuller is going to be buried, no matter we're going to be buried down the roster. Ioannidis will be at most a rotation player.
Right.
Who am I missing, out of this group? Sudfeld isn't going to play.
Yeah.
Keith Marshall's not doing well.
No.
Cravens is kind of the only one that may get significant playing time.
Yeah,
maybe.
He will.
All right. Well, we really have to wrap up for this show. We were on a time crunch here, but you had a quick "Where are they now" thing you wanted to
Yes,
let
we
us
have
know?
a "Where are they now?"
Yeah.
This is courtesy of former Redskins linebacker Robert Henson, who is from Longview, Texas, which is the hometown of none other than Malcolm Kelly and Trent Williams, by the way. And so I tweeted at Henson, curious as to what Malcolm Kelly is doing nowadays because he's not playing football. And as it turns out, Malcolm Kelly owns his own business, which is stationed in and around the Longview area. He owns a shipping company nowadays.
Nice.
So he's made something of himself post football, and he seems to be doing fairly well because he owns his own company. So yeah, that's really good for him. I'm glad he's not sitting around.
Importer, exporter, what?
I think it's a shipping company. No, it's not. The company is shipping goods via contract, is what it seems to be doing.
So on some trucks.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. That's exactly right. And thanks to Robert Henson for that. He's the source of that. So there you go.
Like I said, but when you mentioned you wanted to do that, as long as everyone's got a place where they can take a warm dump and, they're not living under a bridge, I don't want bad things to happen to any of our ex-players. So with that, let's wrap up the show. Looking forward to the fun game this next week on Friday night. And we'll see you guys all next week after that. Bye.